So I think the fastest we've taken the car thus far is around 110 miles an hour through the tunnel, but that's a little scary right now. So probably in your trip you maybe go 40, 50 miles an hour, but this system is designed to do over 150 miles an hour through the tunnel. And I mean, would it be incredible if you could travel around LA, New York, DC, Chicago, Paris, London, anywhere at 150 miles an hour? That'd be phenomenal. I mean, traffic is soul destroying. It's like acid on the soul. It's horrible. The thing is, like, why tunnels? You know, sometimes people say, what about like flying cars and all these other things? And what about mass transit? I want to be clear, we're not opposed to mass transit. We think mass transit is fine. Like, you could go with a flying car, but there are some drawbacks to flying cars. They are, essentially it's a helicopter with wheels. And they make a lot of noise, there's a lot of wind force, and the probability of something falling on your head if there are a bunch of flying cars around is much higher than if there are not. So rain or hurricane or something, suddenly you can't go anywhere. But tunnels are immune to weather. It does not matter if there's a tornado, it doesn't matter if there's like an ice storm, it doesn't matter what's going on above ground. If you're in a tunnel, you're safe and secure. When you ride the tunnel, you'll see the entrance that's basically in the backyard of a house. Okay, the neighbor of that house, when we broke through, when the boring machine broke through the other side, was watching TV. The neighbor did not even stop watching TV. Okay, that's how subtle it was. So you will not hear, see, or feel the tunnels being created. You can weave the boring system tunnel network into the fabric of a city without changing the character of the city. The city will still feel the same. You're not going to get in anyone's way. You're not going to obstruct anyone's view. You'll have this revolutionary transport system, and your city will still feel like your city. So typically, a tunnel will take 3 to 6 months per mile. In some cases, it will take a year per mile. And they can cost up to $1 billion per mile. In fact, the LA subway extension that just got completed cost $2 billion for 2.5 miles. There was a subway extension in New York that I think cost $2 billion for a mile. So clearly something needs to be done to revolutionize tunneling technology. The fastest tunneling machine in the world right now is 14 times slower than a snail. Okay, so when I say like, yeah, we're gonna have like this tunneling machine that can do a mile a week. We're not talking about the sandworms of Dune here, okay? It's still slow. It's just as fast as a snail. You will be able to escape it. As we got into it, we learned more and more about tunneling and why it takes a long time. First of all, in a given hour of tunneling, only about 10 minutes of the hour is spent actually digging. Then the other 50 minutes are spent erecting the tunnel reinforcements, laying down tracks, doing logistics, and a bunch of other stuff. So just automating the segment placement and solving the logistics issues will actually give you about a 5-fold increase in tunneling speed. A lot of these things, like when you boil it down, it's not actually, it's hard to do. It's difficult engineering, but there's no Nobel Prize required here. It's work, but it's very solvable. The combination of automated segment placement and being able to drill while tunneling, like I said, is about a 5-fold increase in speed. Then with our design, we've also tripled the power of the drill. So it can drill 3 times faster. We've modified the cutter design. The dirt removal is continuous. Get a big tunnel and then put water mains and electricity lines inside the tunnel, and then they can actually service, like if they had a water main break, instead of it flooding the main street in the city, they can actually go into the boring company tunnel and fix the water main. This is also very important because then you can intersperse the stations throughout the city and not dump a ton of traffic in one location. So by having many stations, you ensure that people get closer to their destination, and you don't disrupt the traffic pattern around where the loop exits. And then depending upon how much room you can have an elevator, which only takes up a few parking spaces. You can have like a spiral ramp or a long ramp. And you combine that with fast, low-cost tunnels, and I think you've got a very exciting transport solution. You can just keep expanding the number of tunnels. So one of the questions we're often asked is, well, sure, if you build this tunnel, then people will use it, and then it'll just get full, and then we'll be back to where we started, and it's like adding a lane on the freeway. You add the lane, but then the traffic expands to fully available volume. But the thing about going 3D is that you could have like you could have 16 tunnels going in the same direction. So you can have as many tunnels as you want. And I'm pretty sure everyone in the United States is not going to move to LA. But you could literally build enough tunnels to transport everyone in the United States in LA. There is no limit. And also the way it works is there'll be a main artery for the tunnel which travels at 150 miles an hour. It's kind of like an underground highway. So if you think of, say, the way a subway works, a subway is like a bunch of stop streets. You keep stopping. So the average speed on a subway is typically, including stops, is about 10 miles an hour. But the way the loop would work is that you'd have main arteries that are traveling at 150 miles an hour, and only when you want to go to an exit would you have an off-ramp. So you can travel the vast majority of your journey without stopping at 150 miles an hour, and only slow down when you get to your exit. And then automatically transfer from one tunnel to another. It's like a 3D highway system underground, basically. Self-contained steel structures, and so in order to insert the elevator, all you do is dig a hole in the ground real fast, then bring the prefabricated elevator in sections, drop it down, connect the sections, and you're done. There's not like some extended construction project. Let us do everything we can along every direction to alleviate traffic, allow people to get home, get to work, and not spend hours on the road, whatever it takes. And this, I should say also, we will have continuously operating cars in the loop for those that do not have a car. So this will actually give priority to pedestrians and cyclists with cars that are continuously circulating in the loop. So even if you don't have a car, you can still use the system. I really want to emphasize that. When you're driving down the road normally, they retract and go under the car, you don't even see them. But when you get into the tunnel, they deploy and allow you to go through a narrow tunnel very quickly, and effectively like a little train. So this even though it's like a small thing, it's a small but very important element to the technology. So to be clear, this is not intended to be restricted to a Tesla. Obviously, for convenience sake, I use a Tesla. Right, that'd be silly if I didn't. But this is not intended to be some sort of walled garden or just for Teslas or something like that. Any autonomous EV can be outfitted with these guide wheels. It means you can go very, very fast and brake very quickly. Like we expect that you can probably do 1 vehicle per second through the tunnel. Typically on a freeway, you can do, without autonomous vehicles, you can do a car every 2 seconds. But with autonomy, we think you can do a car at least every second. And with radar-based and vision-based braking, you can do so very safely. It's backwards compatible with the road system, which is important. And it can take you. You can literally go. I mean, you can think of these like they're sort of like wormholes. It's just like you drop down the worm. Like you're driving around. Oh, I need to get to the other side of L.A. or New York or whatever. Drop down the wormhole, pop out the other side, and then you can just drive normally. I mean, I think this is like really a panacea. As I was mentioning, elevators prefabricated. You can also do a passive spiral ramp, and you can install these anywhere: parking lots, garages, little alcoves. The elevator itself only takes as much as 2 parking spaces on the street. So if you just have a station in exchange for 2 parking spaces, and that's what I mean. That's basically the size of a station. So you can interleave these stations throughout cities, wherever there's a couple parking spaces or a little patch of road, pretty much anywhere. You can actually even have them come up in underground garages. Sorry, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Frustrated commuters across the country may welcome tech titan Elon Musk's latest big disruptive idea. How about this? Underground tunnels to beat traffic congestion. Last night in Los Angeles, he unveiled the first tunnel in what he hopes will become a network of underground highways, he says. Now, this initial stretch is only for test and won't be used by the public. It runs between the headquarters of Musk's SpaceX company and a parking lot behind a closed business a little more than a mile away. When Musk took me for a ride the other day, it was an eye-opening 4-minute journey.
You can go ahead, I think.
How fast is this?
This is still slow. We're only doing 30 miles an hour.
Oh my God, oh my
we'll
God,
speed
oh
up
my God.
After we get around the corner.
This isn't just any tunnel.
We can get 100, no problem, but we'll take it easy for you.
It's Elon Musk tunnel. And to understand why we're speeding through it, you need to go back a couple of years when he decided he had had enough of Los Angeles traffic gridlock.
Either we try something new or we will be stuck in traffic hell for the rest of our lives. I started thinking, well, maybe this could be underground.
This is the underground network he envisions. Electric cars using street-level elevators to drop down into a series of tunnels. Autonomous technology in the cars ensure that they don't run into each other, despite going speeds over 125 miles an hour.
Tunnels are, in my view, the only solution to urban congestion because we have a 2D road network and we have buildings in 3D. And everyone wants to pile out of those buildings and into those buildings at the same time. Obviously, you're going to have a traffic jam.
No one was building such a system, so Musk formed the amusingly named Boring Company and started building it himself. He hired Steve Davis to be the company's new president. Because Steve, you're an engineer at SpaceX. You've been there for
15 years.
So when Elon came to you and said, I have this idea to do what did he say to you?
Go dig a hole.
He had no experience doing tunnels and said, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Steve, that didn't give you pause?
Learn from scratch. So probably the first day you won't be the best at it, but then you'll get better.
About a year ago, that company started digging what has become today's 1.2-mile-long test tunnel. It's in Hawthorne, near Los Angeles.
Unless we can make tunnel digging at least 10 times cheaper, then digging tunnels will not be an effective means of alleviating traffic. It'll just cost too much. These are tunnel reinforcing segments.
Musk's vision depends on him being able to do it all, faster and cheaper than current industry standards. While modern subway tunnels in Los Angeles cost around $900 million per mile, he says he built this for about $10 million. One way he saved money, he literally made it dirt cheap.
When digging tunnels, it's quite expensive to have all this dirt trucked off somewhere. And we're like, well, why don't we try to use that dirt for something useful? So we're creating bricks on site. And you can pick them up for they're very cheap, 10 cents a brick.
So all of these bricks came out of the tunnel?
Yes.
But speeding up the process was also a cause for concern. The city of Hawthorne granted Musk an exemption from typical environmental impact reviews required under California law. And in nearby neighborhoods where the tunnel runs, some residents told us they never even heard about the project until it was almost finished. Some members of the community seem to feel that they didn't really have input into that decision.
We actually sent letters to everyone. I think that there's normally like a radius that you have to inform people. We doubled that radius and inform people. You know, and I think in any situation, there's going to be a few percentage of people that grumble.
There was also grumbling from another area, the wealthier Los Angeles neighborhood of Brentwood, which is nearby Musk's proposed second test tunnel along busy Sepulveda Boulevard. Community groups sued the city of Los Angeles for also granting an environmental review waiver there. In August, Musk announced he was no longer building that tunnel.
But there's some like retired lawyers in Brentwood that all they do is sue, like literally, they just automatically sue. It's like a hobby.
But those lawsuits sort of shut it down in Sepulveda, did it not?
No, we decided that another test tunnel isn't really needed. I am not fazed by lawsuits.
You can't go off the tracks, right?
No,
that's what you're saying?
You cannot go off the tracks.
At first glance, the tunnel is a bit daunting. It's only 12 feet in diameter, so it's much more claustrophobic than most transportation tunnels.
We'll be able to go like 150 miles an hour if we want.
If you're going that fast, what's to prevent it from crashing into another car ahead of you? That's what I worry about that.
Because the autopilot has radar and cameras that will automatically slow you down before you impact another car. You'd only be allowed to go through the tunnel on autopilot.
At the end of our 4-minute adventure, the verdict? That was scary, but that was kind of cool. And by the time we started up the elevator that returned us to the surface...
And it'll be faster in practice. This is just going slow because it's early days.
I don't want to go any faster than what we just did. No, thank you. And when it was all over, it was easier to see how this proof of concept tunnel could actually be a preview of the world to come.
At this point, I'm confident this can revolutionize cities and get rid of soul-destroying traffic.
Well, I had lots of questions. Elon Musk is a very confident young man. So obviously, first thing I thought about California, earthquake-prone area. But for anybody worried about that and a tunnel collapse, he has an answer for that, too. He's told me that earthquakes really do all of their damage on the surface, not underground. He says they're like waves hitting a boat floating on top of the ocean, and that you'd rather be in a submarine deep underwater if there's a big storm. He also points out that historically, people who were in subway tunnels during earthquakes escaped serious injuries, like the 1968 Mexico City quake, when 0 people died in their subway tunnels. I mean, so I kept saying, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And he has a question for everything. I think by the time I was done, he was ready for me. That's okay. You may go along now. You know, he's been in the news lately. There was a lot of controversy about his personality. It was very clear. He made that very clear to me in no uncertain terms. That's not what this conversation was about. We'd booked this interview a long time ago. But I love how his brain operates. He looks at a problem. What he did with the bricks is ingenious. You know, it costs a lot of money to take away the dirt. Why not make bricks that we can sell? And if you're working with a nonprofit or something that is helping people, you get the bricks for free. So, you know, he's always thinking about how he can make things better. And I admire that about him.
I read what another reporter who'd gone down that tunnel as well wrote, and he said that Batman would have been jealous.
Yes.
That's a good way to sum it up.
That is a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it.
We've got to address that. We'll have cars underground. We'll probably have cars flying in the future, but something to alleviate what is this traffic and infrastructure mess.
He's thinking 2 steps ahead. There is much more of our interview with Elon Musk on our website. You can see the wild ride through the tunnel and hear what we talked about when it was over. And he said, Gayle, time for you to go. Check it out at cbsthismorning.com.